During the construction phase, like you know, from the local content standpoint, we had about 55,000 people working in that facility. There aren't too many projects where you have that number of people on a particular project site. The one I can remember was in my days in the Middle East. That's the GTL, the Qatar GTL. In that construction, we had about 45,000 people on site working. This was 55,000 people on site. And you can imagine the number of Nigerians that were involved in that project. That project, in terms of local content dimension, had the biggest quarry that was established in this country to supply granite. And I see those trucks back and forth, and I see Nigerians driving those trucks back and forth to supply the required quarry to granite to the site. I also see the sand supply that was required. At some point, the community itself, all adjoining communities couldn't meet 10% of the sand requirement for the construction.
In Lekki,
the Lekki axis and beyond. People were all coming, bringing sand, doing all. We had the biggest dredger, the third biggest dredger in the world, situated in that site, dredging sand, raising the height of the construction site by about 1.5 meter to take care of any tidal waves and the rest of it. So it was a massive construction effort. And the number of Nigerians involved, almost about 200 Nigerian contractors were part of the construction. Directly and indirectly, you had about 400 connected to it. So it's one of the local content success stories that we can continue to talk about in this country. Not too many people saw it. If you had visited that site, I used to go on a monitoring visit to the Dangote refinery site, and I saw the number of people working. You see them in the morning when they close, and then you tell yourself, this is what we need in this country. So in terms of local content, it is one of the singular projects. Even like you know, we are doing Train 7 today in Bonny Island. The number of people that worked on Dangote refinery site compared to what we have in Bonny is perhaps 10% of what we have at the Dangote refinery site during construction. And in this operational phase, you have about 2,000 employees directly that will manage it. I must tell you, if only Nigeria is able to replicate 2-3 of this type of mega projects, then the discussion will be different in terms of youth unemployment, in terms of foreign exchange earning. If Dangote refinery becomes operational, you are looking at about 21 billion year on year foreign exchange coming into the country. The size of that refinery is able to meet, if we get the quantity we consume in terms of PMS in this country. I'm not too sure that we have our hands around the numbers, but 53 million liters per day is more than enough to service us and beyond the shores of Nigeria. So if you line up the direct, indirect, and the induced effect with regards to local content development, that is a project that deserves.
While the project, the refinery, was in the making, what were your thoughts around local content? Do you think we'll be able to meet that? Because you need both skilled and not so skilled human resource for that particular refinery. What were your thoughts?
My thoughts were, I mean, we worked hand in glove with the project team in Dangote refinery. We had a very clear view of the projected number of staff during the construction. We had a clear view of the projected number of staff during the operations phase and all of that. And there were lots of trainings that were carried out during the construction phase on upskilling the skill level of Nigerians, where you have skill, semi-skill, and the rest of them. So we had a very clear view on what we felt Dangote should achieve. Don't forget, application of the Local Content Act is based on a pragmatic approach. Okay. Like you know, we've had refineries in this country. A lot of them were not working. So even the skill with which you need to run a refinery, we could not even poach people to say, you come out of where you are to come and join to. So we had to start training people afresh. Almost 900 engineers were sent out of the country to acquire the desired skills with a view to bringing them back to start the operations at the end of July as said by Aliko himself. So I was not disturbed because I know that there were plans to skill up. There were plans during the mid-construction phase, how we will bring those people who have trained to be part of it. And there were plans to look at the operational phase, where we will get Nigerians. But you know how this thing works. Normally in local content, it's not a carte blanche as to say, hey, from day one, you're going to have all Nigerians manning the facility. No, that's not the idea, because there will be transfer of knowledge and the rest. So you have a very clear program on how to phase out the experts that you might bring to start the operations of the refinery. Within a window of 5 years, I can assure you that 99% of those that will man that refinery will be Nigerians. And that plan is within our purview, and we'll be working that with the Dangote Group.
Well, that's on the side of the human resource. What about equipment that you need, fabrications and all of that? Where are we on that?
Well, at the construction phase, there was loads of fabrication. Most of it were done in country. Some of it were done outside the country. I mean, take for instance the catalytic cracker, which is a huge single train cracker. Of course, that was done outside the country because we don't have the technology for it. But fabrication, the bulk of it on site, were done by Nigerians. And
so sorry for cutting that interesting video short. I just want you to like the video right now. Just click on the like button, click on the notification bell, and click all videos so you could be notified when we drop new videos. And please subscribe to this and just hit the button and enjoy your video.
There is a clear plan. Of course, like you know, the government is working to see how the moribund refineries are brought back into operations. And I believe that some of the capacity that will be built within the Dangote refinery could be deployed to also support those other refineries when they come alive, because
instead of bringing those folks from abroad,
absolutely not.
Just say, oh, Dangote, could you please
absolutely
loan us a couple of guys, hands from there?
That's what it is. You might talk to, because
as you want to build something around the corner, it can come to Nigeria. So do you think we should perhaps use the Dangote refinery to have the right training institute for petroleum engineers in terms of refineries?
Probably not petroleum engineers. Petroleum engineers are mainly needed in the upstream sector, but within the Dangote refinery, you have chemical engineers and instrumentation engineers and all other aspects of engineering. In terms of engineers, we don't lack them, to be honest with you, but to be honest, we've not been able to have something like this to expose most of the chemical engineers and the instrumentation engineers that will eventually run Dangote. Today, I believe when Dangote refinery starts operating, all those folks in the university who read chemical engineering, instrumentation, and the rest will be happy that there is somewhere for them to go and practice. Because apart from that, if you have any idea you want to be part of a refining system, it doesn't exist in the country till today. We as NCDMB, we tried on our own part to say we need to catalyze the development of mini refineries in order to support the process. So we started the modular refineries as a model. I mean, as an organization, we were the first to step in to take an equity position in those people who wanted to establish a modular refinery. And I'm sure NNPC followed later to take equity within the Dangote refinery. Today, we have one that is operating in Ibigwe in Imo State. It's a 5,000 barrel modular refinery.
For diesel?
For diesel, kero, as well as heavy fuel oil, HFO, as well as naphtha is what we produce. The only thing we don't produce in that refinery is PMS. But today, Dangote refinery has capacity for 2 million liters a day. I don't think we have the consumption power to finish 2 million liters a day. So there's potential to export to other parts of the sub-region, as it were. So if you had asked me on how we will deal with this refining challenge that we have had in the past, is for government to catalyze it, for private sector to run it, which we had an example with the Walter Smith refinery. Today, Walter Smith do not even store refined product in their tank, because as you produce is being taken away by off-takers. So it's been a success as far as I'm concerned. There are others that we are involved in that are coming up gradually, but this for me is the ultimate in terms of construction. As a civil engineer myself, when I visited Dangote Refinery and I saw the construction activity that was going on there, I was marveled. In a situation where they had to buy almost 2,000 set of equipment, trucks, you name them. At a time, they were piling almost 700 piles a day at that site, because you have almost about 177 tanks within that place, and every module, every structure has to be on par. Dangote had to procure it because within the Nigerian market, you couldn't even get those piles. So if you go there and you see when they close from work and you see the droves of workers going back to their camp, you get impressed and you tell yourself, why haven't we done this as a country for some time
10, 20, 30 years ago.
And I think part of it was that Aliko himself was also motivated by the local content requirements, that this has to be done, such investment has to be protected, because the law, the local content law, is all about protecting in-country investment. So he also saw that, took advantage of it. So we've been working hand in glove, and it's been an accelerating experience.
I'm sure at some point, Engineer, but I'm sure at some point you'll be able to put naira and dollar figures to the local content part of the Dangote refinery.
Yes, yes, of course. We are working that. The numbers are not clear, but I can tell you in terms of in-country spend, you're looking at about 40% of the total spend within the refinery. We had about 40% of it was domiciled in-country. Yeah, in terms of naira and dollars. And if you say the refinery is about $19 billion, you take 40% of that. That was actually in country, because all the granites you needed on that site it came out of Nigeria. They didn't import it.
The sand.
All the sand that you needed on that site came out of Nigeria. All the cement you needed on that site came out of Nigeria. The greater percentage of the reinforcement bars, because like you know, we do produce some element of steel in the country. It's not the heavy sections and stanchions, but all the reinforcement bars that were needed, majority of it was procured in country. So even the electrical cables, yeah, because like you know, today we have a Coleman cable and the rest of the, most of it were procured in country. So 40% of the total spend was domiciled in country.
Wow, wow, wow. This is really, really interesting. So we're going to begin first by defining or by telling us what NCDMB is. So NCDMB stands for Nigerian Content Development and Monitoring Board. This is the body that is tasked with the responsibility of ensuring increased local participation in Nigeria, but majorly in the oil and gas industry. So be it our upstream, midstream, or downstream sector, NCDMB has to ensure, even by law, by the fact that the Nigerian Content Law Act was signed, you know, and even it was updated in 2018. By law, we ought to have a lot of local participation in the oil and gas industry, which will be more sustainable for, you know, the country in the long run. Now, the reason why a lot of our refineries, you know, went aground and could not be maintained, not just refineries, some other critical infrastructure in the country and some other, you know, manufacturing sectors have not been able to see a lot of development in the past decades because of, you know, inactive local participation in those industries. So prior to now, when we have issues in certain, you know, government companies or mega industries or mega factories, we have to pay for, you know, a crew all the way from Europe, a maintenance crew, to move in country and get the equipment fixed, or sometimes change, you know, a particular section of operations and then go back. So so the country is going to foot the bill for these guys to live wherever they are in Europe and come down to Nigeria. The country is going to lodge them, feed them, and also, you know, send them back to their, you know, destination country. So because of this kind of atmosphere, you know, the country, or most times companies in Nigeria would usually wait till things are, you know, almost getting out of hands before they begin to ask for a maintenance order from Europe. But with this local content law in place, we're trying to see how to increase the skill level of Nigerians so that we no longer have to seek help from afar before we can maintain the facilities that we are running in this country. And with the coming up of the Dangote refinery, this will be more achievable, even with faster speed. So when this president came into power in 2015, Nigerians' content participation was around 15%. But as of 2022, our content participation had soared to over 54% in the oil and gas industry. Now we have a target of 70% local content participation by the year 2027. So this is 2023, and in about 4 years' time, we are hoping that we should have hit the 70% mark. I am personally of the mindset that we would even surpass the 70% mark by 2027, because with the coming in of the Dangote refinery, we're going to have a lot of hands-on learning by Nigerian engineers, in the refining sector and in the oil and gas sector, which would help, fast track the learning process, that we have been trying to acquire by sending our engineers abroad. Now, away from the oil and gas industry, when this president began to sign certain contracts in place with the Chinese government, it mandated, that when railways are being constructed in the country, Nigerians should be actively involved in every process so as to develop the necessary skills to maintain the rail lines, even when the contractors have returned to their home country. So when we had when the Abuja Kaduna train was robbed sometime and destroyed sometime last year, it was Nigerian local engineers that were the ones that laid the tracks back. They were the ones that repaired the train coaches and even restored operations to the Abuja Kaduna rail without any single foreign intervention in the whole process. Now, this is the beauty of having increase in local participation in any industry. So in the rail industry now, in the country, we have a railway assembly plant in Ogun State. We have a railway maintenance plant, in Delta State, and we even have a transport university. So all these things come into place to ensure that we would be able as a country to sustain the infrastructure that we spend a lot of money to build in this country. Now, maintenance has been a very big issue in the country, and President Muhammadu Buhari had put a lot of things in place to ensure that going forward, we'll be able to sustain, the facilities that we erect in this country. So, other bodies other than NCDMB in other sectors, have been set up to ensure that there is more and more local participation in the country. And this is a very nice initiative that is already paying lots of dividend to the country as a whole. So I'm sure you've enjoyed what you've heard so far, and it has given you more hope. So this is where we're going to end for today's video. I'd like you to make more research on this topic on your own spare time, to like this video, to share, and to subscribe to this channel if you have not already done so. And until we see again, I remain your host, Edi Kanobut, and this is Isaac News.